Coming up on this edition of AU Hoop Talk with Coach Brennan, presented by Launchbox Golf, we'll look at the freshman involvement. Even Brennan from The Athletic will stop by and join the discussion, and we'll look forward to the games against UMES and George Washington. It all starts right now. Welcome into AU Hoop Talk, presented by Launchbox Golf. Dan Lang, Coach Brennan, and Coach, let's jump into the game against Mount St. Mary's. And freshman Josh Alexander looked good, got some quality minutes, came away with 12 points, 7 rebounds, and really looked good on the floor. Yeah,
well, Josh is definitely going to be a very good player for us. That was the first time that he's played, extended minutes like that. Definitely. He wasn't quite prepared, just because he's never done it. But I was very happy with what he did while he was out there. That was an important experience for him going forward.
Played over 20 minutes. And Jacob Boone, you said, also is getting quality minutes in just about every game that you guys have played so far. When you look at the freshmen, the youngsters, and incorporating them into the scope of things and doing it with as many minutes, that's not something you've done a lot of in the past.
No, but I think these two guys are going to be really good. So now the balance is, you want to win your games. So it's like you play young guys a ton of minutes, and you wind up losing by 1. You go back, okay, is that why? I don't think it was. But we definitely want to get these two prepared as much as possible, because they can definitely help us in Patriot League play. They're both. Josh demonstrated it last night. He can put the ball in the basket. He goes after rebounds. And then once Jacob gets comfortable, he's a very good offensive player. So, we just got to get him to the point where he knows where he should be and what he's doing and getting comfortable with it. And once he does, I think he's going to help us a lot.
Mark Gasparini sat out the game against Mount St. Mary's, was sick. How much did that, for instance, cost you the game? Or maybe not, you don't want to put all that on, and that's fine. But especially when you look at the rebounding component of things, where Mount St. Mary's just really controlled the boards.
Yeah, well, just having another big body. Mark has been good for us. He gives us point production down there, and he's been rebounding, at a higher clip than he did his freshman year, certainly. And just having more bodies, more energy, to play guys is a big thing, because sort of battling down there, with those other centers, it takes a lot out of you. So to just rely on 2 guys, it's always good to have a third body for sure.
Long layoff between games. When you look at that, how much do you put into that? The guys, I know are still practicing, but you don't have them quite as much as you do on normal weeks. And of course, they're obviously not playing in games, right?
Right. Now, we look like we took exams for a week, But I told the guys that, hey, everybody goes through that. You gotta be able to come out and perform. We didn't have Gasparini, and YY was sick, and we had exam. It sounds like Belushi and the Blues Brothers when it was a flood, there were locusts, a hurricane, it's making up all these excuses. But at the end of the day, no one cares about that, especially the other team. So you got to be ready to play, whether you're up in Hamilton, New York at 2 p.m. on a Saturday, or at BU 7 p.m. on a Wednesday, and you're in school and doing all these things. Everybody's going through it, so that's part of being a college athlete. So we just got to get used to being ready to compete when we have to.
Indeed, and look for the bounce back against UMES. We'll take a timeout. When we continue, Even Brennan from The Athletic joins the discussion right here on AU Hoop Talk, presented by Launchbox Golf.
Welcome to our sleepy little college town. You may have heard of us. Here we stand up for causes as naturally as we sit down for classes. We believe that knowledge, understanding, and discovery will make the world a better place, and that our contributions are only limited by our imaginations. Words, medals, and degrees don't make us who we are. Meaningful change does.
We are American.
And there's nothing we would rather be.
Welcome back to AU Hoop Talk, presented by Launchbox Golf, and we're now joined by Coach Brennan from The Athletic. And Eamon, you had a chance to write a heartwarming story, a story that if you follow AU basketball, you know parts of it, and that is the story of Yiljip YY and the heart condition that kept him off the floor playing basketball for 4 years, and now he's back. First of all, thanks for taking some time. Welcome to the show.
Oh, thanks for having me. Yeah, it's great.
When this YY story came to you, I guess take us through how you started getting your head around what this story is and what it meant.
Yeah, so it was funny. I was just I was doing kind of a right at the start of the season a preview piece about every team sort of in the DMV, mm-hmm. and just kind of going through doing some fact check type stuff about rosters and making sure I was all set, and I just came across a blurb. I think it was in, for full disclosure and to give them credit, the Blue Ribbon College Basketball Yearbook. Mm-hmm. And I was just kind of looking in there and like, okay, this is the roster. These are the guys who are back and gone, and so on and so forth. And noticed a little thing about, oh yeah, and this guy Yiljip, who, again, full disclosure, I'd never heard of, had a misdiagnosed heart condition, and now he's back playing. And I was like, that's kind of weird. I've never heard of that happening before. And so I told my editor it was something maybe we could look into. Our managing editor, David Aldridge, also an American alum, yeah. Actually a couple days later sent me a message and sort of with the story, and I was like, I was just thinking about the same. I just told our other editor, Kevin, like this might be really interesting. So I started really digging in, reached out to Nick here at AU and set up interviews, and once I didn't really know what to expect or how much he would really want to talk about this, but getting to the actual facts of the story in the first place, which is, he's a freshman, he plays 13 games, sort of basketball futures ahead of him, is diagnosed with a heart condition, and told by, that summer that he can't play basketball, period, anymore. And sort of it hangs around the team and graduates after a few years and is done. And, finds out later that that wasn't the case and now he can play. That's crazy in and of itself. Right. And then after talking to YY for a bit and getting a lot of his very open and candid sort of thoughts about it, it was, I thought, a really interesting and fascinating story. And hopefully it reads that way to people.
Well, 21 pages, you got a lot of content. What was, when you talked to YY and when you talked to Coach Brennan, along with the other people that you talked to, his fiancee Sarah Katz, what was it, or was there one thing that really surprised you about this story that you really went, wow, huh?
It was, probably the biggest thing is just, again, the overall situation of it, mm-hmm. but I think the thing that made me first think that this is going to could be a really good story that people would really be interested to read was talking to him and sort of him describing in really sort of intense and like I said, candid detail how he felt physically, mm-hmm. how he felt emotionally, sort of the ups and downs he went through. I think when we were sitting, he said, game days were basically terrible for his entire college career because he was around the team. He was a coach essentially, sort of at like almost a graduate assistant type of level. And so practices and off days, he was around the team. He was still involved. That was all well and good. But sitting on the bench with the court right in front of him every day, mm-hmm. and literally all he wants to do is play basketball. Having it be so close was as difficult as being around the team was helpful. I thought that was interesting. And yeah, talking to his fiancée, her ability to, they've been dating for so long and know each other so well, and she was kind of at every step of this journey with him. When he got back from finding out that his diagnosis was final, he wasn't going to play, she picked him up from the airport and was with him sort of as he was going through that right away. And has obviously been with him throughout everything. They were engaged last year and sort of had to decide when to get married based around, well, I actually might be playing basketball next year, who knows? So yeah, it was fascinating to talk to them. And the one last thing I'll say is talking to a cardiologist from VCU who's super helpful. He specializes in pediatric cardiology, particularly, sort of, I can't remember the exact medical area of study, but basically it's his job semi-often to tell young athletes either we're monitoring you for a heart condition and you'll probably be fine, check in a couple months, okay, you're fine, or you got to stop. You can't play anymore because you could die on the floor. And him sort of saying, look, this can happen. We don't know how often it happens. No one wants to admit that they've misdiagnosed someone, so you're not going to see a lot of studies about it. And the sort of fear that cardiologists have that they will be the person who says, yes, you can play. I'm contradicting a previous cardiologist or 5 previous cardiologists' opinions and letting you take the risk. And then if you die on the floor like Hank Gathers, then you're not only exposed to a potentially really damaging lawsuit, but you have that on your conscience for the rest of your life. And so this type of situation, as totally unique and unusual as it sounds, may not actually be that unusual, and a lot of people may not find out about it until either much further down the line or maybe never at all, because it's just a risk. It's a cost-benefit analysis that is pretty straightforward when you think about it.
Mm-hmm. And medical professionals now are saying that it has more to do with anxiety, is what YY is going through, correct?
Yeah, so the sort of, the kicker to the story, more or less, is he had graduated, and he said he was feeling sort of increasingly frustrated and kind of worked up about what, a lot of the stuff that people who graduate college right away do. Where am I going to work? What is my career going to be? But also with him, the sort of, it's over now. I've graduated. There's no chance that I'm going to get a different diagnosis and have a chance to get on the floor. My career is over. What does my life look like without basketball? All of that sort of stuff. And he was the first time he had what eventually was diagnosed as a panic attack. They were out to the movies. He felt weird. Things started spinning. They went to the hospital. Couldn't figure out what was wrong with him. By the time he got to the hospital, he was fine. His vital signs were fine. Everybody was kind of stumped. It happened again about a month later. He went again. The doctors thought maybe you have vertigo. He went to a specialist to get sort of tested for vertigo, was in that office and had a panic attack and just went straight to the hospital. And this time they just admitted him and were like, we're going to figure this out. And eventually a cardiologist, sort of checked out all of his records and his current tests and said, we think what you're having are panic attacks, but what we can say is that this has nothing to do with your heart. Your heart is fine. And so he went from, a point where he thought he had this heart condition. He had been managing it every day. He had to be careful about how much he exerted himself, to the point of, like, if he was late for class, he kind of just had to force himself to just not be late, not run, not walk too fast, take medications every day, sort of be reminded on a daily basis that, kind of having his own mortality at the front of his mind every day, and then being in a position where, am I having a heart attack right now? Am I having a couple different, what is going on with my heart? Am I in danger? To actually, your heart is totally fine, and you can probably play basketball, so don't worry about it. And then getting cleared and getting the opportunity to come back and play from the NCAA and the Patriot League. It's a total reversal, and I think based on what he told me, based on what Sarah, his fiancée, told me, it's dramatically affected their sort of day-to-day happiness. They were already happy, but the sort of getting all of that taken off of them and sort of lifted off their shoulders has in her words, basically she said he didn't know he could be this happy, and we didn't know we could be this happy. So it's a happy ending quite literally.
And not only does he get 1 year of eligibility, but he gets 2.
Right, yeah. So it would be, I think that's interesting, or at least something for people to keep an eye on. It's a guy who, if you think about it, his game was basically like cryogenically frozen, right? He's much older than he was when he was a freshman and played 13 games and then was told to stop. And he couldn't really exert himself to work on his game in any, significant way. I mean, he could basically walk, but anything more than that, and you're asking for trouble. So he is now in the position where he's a leadership figure on the team. He's a much older guy. His body is much different than it was then, but his sort of skill level is kind of frozen in time.
Yeah.
So I think if he was just here for 1 year, you'd probably see what you see with him right now, which is he's a big dude. He plays with energy. He tries to get after the boards, but you're not going to see dream shakes or baby hooks on the low block really anytime soon. But the fact that he does have a second year and will have a full off season, this whole season and then a full off season to train and kind of develop, who knows what level he'll get to, but it's interesting in that the story doesn't stop this year, and what he is right now, he has a chance to actually improve on, and I think have sort of that critical college athlete experience of really seeing yourself and feeling yourself get substantially better.
Another angle to the story that I think is really interesting is his relationship with Coach Brennan.
Yeah.
And how Mike kept him around the program, why I wanted to stay around the program, and now boom, now he's back playing for Mike, and after Mike had sort of let him in the coaching circle, so to speak, now he's back on the floor.
Right. I thought that was really interesting. Sort of the dynamic there was he was nominally a coach. Obviously, he's still an athlete on scholarship, but the way Coach Brennan described it was that he was sort of invited into the inner sanctum with the coaches. When they had their meetings, when they talked about how the team was playing, he was there, and he had the ability then to take some of that stuff back to the team and give them, a different voice to it. And you're not just being yelled at by your coaches. There's a different relationship when it's a guy who's your age or, thereabouts. And so he became sort of this figure in the program who existed in both worlds and was kind of an authority figure, kind of a leadership figure, and he still is. But now he's just a player, full stop. And Coach Brennan, said it's kind of hard for me to get on him, not only because he's working really hard and he's been through so much and he's like just happy to be on the floor, but because they existed in this relationship for a long time where he's not going to get on his assistant coach in the same way that he's going to get on a player, and now he has to recalibrate that when he thinks, wow, he needs a little nudge in a drill or something. So it's a mind-blowing sort of, when you really get down to the different ways that the kid's life has changed and his career has changed, and his relationship to basketball and his teammates and the game has changed. It's just something that you don't see very often. It's totally different from the average path of a sort of 4-year college basketball player, and that I think is just really, to me, was fascinating to kind of think about how you would respond to a similar situation, how you would experience those things. It's unique, let's put it that way.
Yeah, and it says a lot about YY and the passion he has for basketball and what it means to him, because it helped get him from Nigeria here to the United States as well. So that's another layer.
Right, exactly. And that was the thing that he didn't just say, I think it would be really easy, and I've certainly been in this position before, and I know lots of people who have, where you have built your life around a thing, right? In his case, it was basketball. It's why he moved from his home country to the United States as a teenager, and basketball got him there and gave him that opportunity. And as his fiance said, it was sort of the structure of his life. Everything was based around basketball, his self-identity included. And all of a sudden, that was gone. And I think it would be easy for a lot of people to say, all right, then, screw it. I am going to just play video games all the time, or I'm going to, do something totally different and just forget about basketball and put it out of my life and not have to think about it on a daily basis. But he was so in love with the game and so wanted to be a part of it somehow that he stuck with it, and it affected him positively and negatively to such an extent that he kind of credited that for being in a weird way why he found out about his diagnosis, because it was bothering him so much that his career was over, and that he didn't really know what to do. And even while he was here at school, it was bothering him on a daily basis, just the medications and the monitoring and all that stuff, that it sort of pushed him to a place where he had these panic attacks and this anxiety, and that's what got him in the hospital and kind of got it figured out in a more real way than it had been before. It's not hard to imagine a reality in which he was one of the kinds of guys who would just say, okay, bye basketball, and would have gone down a totally different path for the rest of his life.
Mm-hmm. We're talking with Coach Brennan from The Athletic, and working for an entity like The Athletic allows you to do a story like this, that when you print it out, it's 21 pages, that in this day and age of digital media and everything, there's not a lot of outlets that really allow a reporter, someone to really dig deep into a story. It's more just skim and go, tweet, keep it to a number of characters and roll.
Yeah. No, it's been refreshing. I worked at ESPN for 8 years, and had the opportunity to do longer stories and sort of what I guess a lot of reporters would call meatier stories. The kinds of things you take a while to work on, and when they come out, you hope they're really well done and they affect people. But it is tough sometimes to get people to read past the fourth or fifth paragraph. Particularly when, it's a story placed next to 800 other things that are much shorter and faster, and you're just kind of going throughout your day-to-day. And what I found at The Athletic is that because of the way the publication works, the idea being, quality sports writing and sports journalism from people you've been reading for a long time, whether it's in your local market or on a national level. You pay us, your subscription. You subscribe every year, and this is what you get in return. And it's a ton that you get in return. And what I found anyway is that I get response to these kinds of stories, which is 4,000 words, and might take you, half an hour or longer to get through if you read start to finish. And the willingness to do that has, from readers has been incredible. And it's almost an eagerness. It's like, we want this stuff. Have it be as long as it needs to be. Don't worry about it. I've got time for it. And an American university player that most people will not have heard of and would have been totally off the radar for a number of years. If the story is interesting and reasonably well told, then people pick it up. It's been pretty exciting. And
for folks that aren't familiar with The Athletic, that's really the crux of what you guys do. Like, game stories, that's not really in your wheelhouse. It's more telling the story beyond the game, off the court, off the floor, off the field.
Absolutely, yeah. It's definitely, look, I mean, a game story, I actually really liked writing game stories when I used to do it 6-7 years ago. It's kind of fun to be like on deadline and like trying to make it cool, but also like hit the old school hows, whys, whats, all that stuff. But yeah, I mean, you can get the basic facts of a game in 2 seconds, and you don't need me to tell you. Basically, you probably watched it. If you want to read something about it afterwards, there's a decent chance you watched it. So the thing that I think we at The Athletic and a lot of really talented and incredible writers and editors behind the scenes really work on is giving people stuff they didn't know already, that takes them behind the scenes or explains why something is the way it is, or why a game went the way it did, and the sort of it could have happened 4 months ago or a year ago, but it is definitely that difference between hopefully a sort of, okay, thanks, that was a good story, and wow, that affected me, I want to read more stuff like this.
Well, thanks for taking some time both to do the story and to stop by the show.
Thanks for having me. It's been a lot of fun.
Coach Brennan right there. Be sure and subscribe to The Athletic. We'll be back with more AU Hoop Talk presented by Launchbox Golf right after this.
Welcome to our sleepy little college town. You may have heard of us. Here we stand up for causes as naturally as we sit down for classes. We believe that knowledge, understanding, and discovery will make the world a better place, and that our contributions are only limited by our imaginations. Words, medals, and degrees don't make us who we are. Meaningful change does.
We are American.
And there's nothing we would rather be.
Welcome back to AU Hoop Talk, presented by Launchbox Golf. And, Coach, coming up is the game against UMES. And when you take a look at UMES, they've struggled some this year, but they have a couple of pretty good pieces.
Yeah, no, they got some veteran guys that have played a lot. I mean, the kid Andino's been around. He's a very good player. Knows how to play, can shoot, can score. Older guy that can, certainly give you trouble. So, again, I mean, and they've played a really tough schedule, too. There's no, games where you feel good going into it, to be quite honest. Everyone's going to test you. Everyone's going to give you trouble. We lost in a close one down there. I mean, we were up most of the game, but we're expecting another battle.
You mentioned Andino. He's a graduate player. How much do you put into those guys, and how much can they bring just because of experience and they've been around the floor?
Yeah, I mean, they're just, they played so many minutes against, so many different players. They've been, on the court in big moments and had to score, had to produce, had to make their team win, in many different scenarios. Guys like that, always bring a lot to the table. Just that experience is huge. So, we're trying to get there, but again, it's, each game, tests you in different ways. So we just got to be ready to do the things that that we've worked on, to do the things that we emphasize consistently, and I'll feel good about our chances.
This is our holiday edition of AU Hoop Talk, and so what's on your list? What's on the old list that you wish for this holiday season?
Well, you always just want to be happy for those 3 days that you get off. So I mean, you want to win is the most important thing. That allows you to sort of enjoy the holiday season and be happy when you're with friends and family. So winning would be important.
How will you celebrate? Anything special? Any particular dishes that you enjoy? Any movies that you watch? Anything in particular that you're going to do over that?
Well, it's funny. You get sort of so little time that you try to cram everything in. So you're just trying to do everything in a short span of time. Go Christmas shopping, whatever.
So you wait till the last minute to do the Christmas shopping. You're not done.
Essentially, yeah. Essentially, I'll be on the computer, eBay, all that stuff.
Okay, so you don't actually go to the mall either. You sit there
if I have to.
Computer if you have to. Okay. All right, so that's how you celebrate. Okay, that's Coach Brennan. We want to remind you, as the Eagles wrap up and wind down non-conference play, they'll be on the floor across town at George Washington over at GW on December 29th, so you can make the short trek over there for that. And, of course, to get ready for Patriot League play, to look at the schedule, log on to aueagles.com. And for tickets, you can call 202-885-TIXX. Again, that's 202-885-TIXX, or log on to aueagles.com. For Coach, I'm Dan. Happy holidays, everybody.